that's a life of violence at heart. It's half his size.
Right, so here I have with me an amazing man called Paul. Now, Paul's been through a lot throughout his life, and this is to get to know about his story and how it can help other people maybe relate, understand, and maybe in hope of obviously reaching out to someone that you don't need to suffer alone in darkness or in often dangerous situations. Now, Paul, firstly, I want to ask you that some of these questions, they may be of sensitive nature, so any time that you feel that you want to stop, just raise your hand. Alright, the main thing that we want you to do is feel comfortable, and that's it really. So firstly, Paul, I just want to thank you, and I want you to firstly tell me about your story, about where Paul was within his childhood.
Okay, an only child, and as a child we moved around a great deal in different parts of the country. I think I went to 7 or 8 different schools. I was physically and emotionally, mentally abused.
Right.
There is a potential that there could have been other abuse as well.
Okay.
But there's no way of knowing that. I just have occasional flashback memories. So
Sure.
That's,
And do these flashbacks still happen now, or?
Oh yeah.
They do?
Yeah.
And are these sort of during night sleep patterns, or they can happen during the day?
They're completely random.
Right.
It could be just something on the TV or on the internet, or something somebody mentions in passing in a conversation, or for no particular reason. And I'm just going to flashback some childhood, which is very unfortunate. I mean, I know there were good times during my childhood. You know,
yeah.
There were good and bad times. But what I've brought from it as an adult is the damage it's done to me in later life. So,
would you say it's sort of safe to say that you didn't recognise it throughout your teens, or? And you mentioned obviously adult life now. Is that when it's sort of come to the surface, or?
Well, because we moved around so much.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that wasn't how everybody lived. I didn't see myself as a victim of abuse. I didn't see myself as a victim of anything. It was just how life was. And I think because we moved around so often, I never made that core of friends that you can kind of grow up with and you talk things through with. So I was brought up very much to be a loner.
Right.
So I think I was about 22 when I happened to be chatting to somebody and realised that, you know, being kicked in the shoulder or punched or a favourite was locked in the cupboard under the stairs. It wasn't normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I look back now, obviously I've got a much better understanding of the world around me than what, you know, I've got a daughter of my own. So, you know, looking back, you can see it was very, very wrong. But things like safeguarding and that kind of thing just weren't around at that time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm coming up for 49. So we're talking like in the mid to late 70s and stuff, there was no such thing really.
Why do you think it's taken so long for people to suddenly, within the 20th century and in this day and age, in this generation, are now finally starting to talk about it? What's taken so long?
I think it's a generational thing. You see, my grandparents went through the war, the Second World War. My parents grew up at the end of it, but mine's the first generation that hasn't seen it, you know, in conscription. Mine's the first generation that hasn't necessarily experienced war, and we're now in a position where we can sit back and reflect upon, as a society, what has been going on. And certainly, you know, we can look back and think, yeah, that wasn't right. But at the time, people had bigger and more important things on their minds.
And so you mentioned the word, which is quite a powerful word. It's something I can sort of relate to as well, the word loner. When you hear that word, how does that make you feel?
It just pretty much describes me, really.
See, the thing is, Paul, with meeting you in person now, I know we've had telephone conversations about a lot of disclosed information that I won't obviously mention here, but you know, you're a big guy and you come from a hard past as well. You know, you're a hard bloke. So, you know, in terms of males and stuff, a lot of males like to be surrounded by the hard male. Now, what do you think went different for you? Now, you mentioned you were, you know, this loner. Was it because you didn't want people to get to know you? Were you always protecting something, do you think? To allow people not sort of to come close to you within your circle? Because you were an aggressive guy, right?
Very aggressive.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, very, very aggressive. I was a fighter. You have to bear in mind that I've been dealing with violence literally all of my life. So, if somebody annoyed me, there'd be a warning, and then the next thing I knew, there would be violence that was over the top. You know, it was stupid looking back, but I didn't have the maturity to understand it at the time. You know, I was just a fiery young lad. The loner thing is, I've always had a very, very small circle of friends. I'd rather have one or two people that I can trust and know they've got my back than have this wonderful social life that means very little. And when I was going through sixth form, so we're talking from 16 to 18, it was already evident then that things were different, because I would be getting up to no good somewhere, and already that reputation was building. So,
do you regret things that you've done? You've done some pretty bad things. Do you now, obviously you've come so far with your life now, and you actually help a lot of people yourself, which we'll go on to shortly. Do you live in regret, or what have you learned to do? Would you say forgiveness is quite a powerful thing?
I think acceptance is more important than forgiveness. If I hadn't been through what I have, if I hadn't done what I have, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And that's when you can start playing the what if game, and that goes on forever. Forgiveness is okay, so yeah, alright then, this is what I did, I'm sorry for it. But accepting it is more important. Understanding the effects it's had on you, and being able to see it through older eyes, more mature eyes, and not get all het up about it, not get all emotional or worried or anything else, and just...
So what would be your advice to someone who's listening now, who's maybe that age who's probably going through the same situation that what you went through, and is going on to a course of violence and things to where you are now? What would you say to that younger Paul now?
Think before you react. Sometimes you've got to think pretty quickly because you need those reactions to come in pretty quick. If you've been in a situation where you are being physically threatened, you've got to make that decision there and then. But if you've got time to think, take a step back and get some perspective on it.
Really good advice.
Take that step back and think about, in the grand scheme of things, does this really matter? And it's something that I'm trying to instill into my daughter. If someone says something about you at college, or, for me, if someone knocked into me in a pub or something, that's not going to affect the rest of my life. It's not going to affect me tomorrow. So what's the point in losing your temper and battering someone, or worse, over what is really quite a trivial thing? You need to get, if someone's going into this kind of violent situation or violent reaction, take a step back, get some perspective, look at it and think, right, what's happened to me? How much does this matter in my life? And you'd be surprised how often it doesn't matter at all. I've been through a situation recently where some things have been stirred up, and it's a bit of Chinese whispers and a bit of someone said this about it, someone said that. And these people aren't important to me. There was a time I'd have, that's it, got in my car.
But why they are not important to you?
Because they're not part of my life. It's that simple. If somebody doesn't like me, then they don't like me. If they do like me, they do. But that's the opinion of somebody, and maybe I can change that opinion, maybe I can't, but they're not part of my everyday life, it's not important. And instead of getting in the car and loading up with machetes and God knows what else and going on the rampage, I just simply text back, I don't care.
Wise words. Paul, now you come from, let's talk about your sort of professional background. So, you come from, your martial arts background, that's correct, isn't it? You've worked the doors, you've done debt collection, high levels. Can you tell us a little bit more about the industries that you've worked in and what you enjoyed most about it and what you didn't like about it?
Well, the pub thing I sort of fell into because I was a bit of a pisshead, so I just, it made sense to me to go into it, and I actually went in as very young as a manager, which combined with that violent side of me meant I ended up doing a lot of the rougher pubs in London. I've worked in some fairly notorious ones as a relief manager, where someone's been sacked or gone on holiday, whatever, and I've had to walk in as a complete stranger and take control of that pub there and then. And that's where growing up with the violence and being a loner was a big advantage for me, because I didn't have to rely on anybody else, and I wouldn't back down. So when you're walking into a pub and you've been told it's notorious, you know that you're going to expect trouble, and you know you've got to face it down. You're going to have to prove yourself, and you're going to prove it yourself time and time and time again. And although that was a big advantage for me, it also got me into quite a lot of trouble, because I wouldn't back down.
Yeah.
You know, you gain a certain amount of respect for that, but you get respect from the wrong people.
Yeah.
And get drawn into that world. I did a few years doing the pubs and stuff, and then got a job doing debt collection. I mean, the pubs were great, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. It was, I was a young lad, you know, and it was, you know, I could eat and drink for free, live for free, got paid at the same time. So, you know, it was ideal for me. But I started looking around me and seeing men in their 50s, their 60s, that had been in the pubs all their life, and they were all broken marriages, alcoholics, the bodies were knackered, and I thought, no, it's not really for me. So I came out of that and went into debt collection instead.
How was it collecting debt within the United Kingdom? In terms of, did you have to put a persona on at doors and stuff? Did you ever, because you know you've got a good heart yourself, and I can see that. Did you ever sort of feel sorry for people that when, you know?
I did, and although I was there to do a job.
Sorry, I shouldn't say sorry. I mean to help. You wanted to help people
at
the same time.
I was there to do a job, which was collect money. Now, if I turn up to the house and I see they've got nothing, I'm not going to stand there and harass them. I actually had a few physical fights with colleagues because they were sending people off to court as punishment. And it's like, well, you're punishing someone for being poor. Regardless of why they're poor, that's punishment enough. You know, the fact they've got debt collectors banging on the door is bad enough. Sending them to court for a CCJ that is just completely unenforceable, it's a waste of time, effort, money, and you're getting nothing out of it apart from a little bit of maybe petty revenge. I don't know.
Why do they do it?
No idea. Power trip.
So a lot of debt collection companies are power trips, is that what you used to say?
I mean, we're talking back in the probably early 2000s, when there wasn't as much legislation in the industry.
So basically you're allowed to do whatever the fuck you wanted, really.
Yeah.
As long as you sort of get that money or made by any sort of means possible that was sort of put under the cuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. You could try persuasion, you could try threats, you could try whatever you wanted to. Because, I mean, some of the time it was not a great deal of money, and I just used to go with a note on it for trial to say, don't bother following up, get no further action. Sometimes there was a lot of money involved, and I took Bentleys off people.
Mm.
You know,
Wow.
they live in this huge house. They've left the Bentley on the road. Well, yeah, that was fair game. That was legal.
See, a lot of people would never sort of think a guy or a woman who has a Bentley, that this kind of stuff, debt collectors would be at their door. Why is that reason? Are they living a fake life? Are they?
Yeah.
Are they?
It's good. And a lot of these, nowadays, it's social media influencers
Mm.
and things. And everything is portrayed on the internet or Facebook, Instagram. They have these wonderful, glamorous lifestyles.
Mm.
But I can guarantee a lot of them are funding that through debt.
Mm.
And at some point, the debt catches up with you.
And they get caught out.
You get caught out. And it's, alright, you know, these influencers, maybe themselves, aren't in debt. But it's the people they're influencing. They want that lifestyle. They want to achieve what this person has achieved.
Or what they think.
What they think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they
I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying. We live in that world where there's so many fucking bullshit, fake. I refer to them as idiots out there on social media because they do so much damage to different generations, younger generations, or any sort of generation who is maybe in a vulnerable position, or you know where they sort of want to be like them instead of focusing on who they are as a person.
Yeah.
And we live in that dangerous world, and I think you're perfectly correct in what you're saying. And I think a lot of this is led, we live in that, I think, sort of time now where people are so body image conscious. As soon as you bring materialism into it, people are just led straight away. You have the perfect body, you have the perfect car, perfect house. People want to be like that because people want to steer away from the reality of their own life. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
So talk to me about the martial arts background, Paul.
I got sent to judo when I was 7.
Wow, at 7?
Yeah. My dad made me go to judo. I didn't like it, but he made me go. And he didn't say no to my old man, obviously. So I started off at 7 years old. On and off over the years, met people that were Muay Thai, freestyle kickboxing, different forms of karate, silent, Chun. So I've dabbled in lots of things. And then my daughter started Badaru, black belt in Badaru and Jiu-Jitsu.
Wow, incredible.
You know, that was quite helpful. But then there's, you know, I've only taken what I need from those.
Sure.
And, you know, what I needed from whatever. So it's more, the good thing about martial arts is it's discipline and confidence. And it's not the confidence that I'm going to go and beat the shit out of somebody. It's the confidence of knowing that it don't matter how big you are, it doesn't matter how hard you are. You know, I'm going to be able to hold my own against you, if not win. So I don't need to have that fight.
So prevention.
Yeah. So the discipline involved in martial arts is more of prevention of fighting than it is learning how to fight. The physical side of it is, yeah, I know how to throw a punch. Traditional boxing as well, did that for years. But yeah, you learn how to throw a punch, you learn how to block, but you also learn how to walk away. Walking
away from situations that could end up pretty bad.
Or talk your way out, or de-escalate it. De-escalation is important. It was something that, you know, on the doors as well. And I worked the doors before the SIA license came on that whole. So back then, it was knuckle dusters and bruisers. There was none of this. You've got to be licensed. You've got to have a badge. You've got to have this, that, and the other. It was, you're going to be stuck on the door. You've got to be able to scrap. And that was it. And I've worked with lads who, you mentioned the ideal body. I mean, I've worked with lads who absolute roid freaks that couldn't fight. You look and they've run.
Not fighters.
Yeah. Massive, like biceps the size of my thighs, but they haven't got the mentality that the martial arts teaches you, that confidence. So they leg it. They rely upon size. When size doesn't work, they've got nowhere else to go. I've also worked with skinny little guys who you wouldn't notice, and seen them knock people flying.
Yeah.
So this is like judging the book by its cover thing. It's always a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, it is. Talk to me about, so you have, Paul, you have a mental health condition. I like to refer to conditions. As you know, I got diagnosed with PTSD. And, when I first was diagnosed, I broke down in tears. And but learning of different, my triggers and coping mechanisms and closing a lot of my past, getting obviously help from counselling service. Not that all counselling has worked or helped. I've turned my sort of attitude to look more on positive outlook on life now, and things that I can learn from my condition, and especially in terms of helping other people. Similar to you, I've come from obviously a violent past as such, through obviously military and criminality afterwards and things like that, and security and stuff. So I've learned to focus more on growth now in terms of my mindset. Is that something, so if you can say what your condition is and how you sort of progress living with it?
I have something that's quite rare. It's called functional neurological disorder, FND. And it's basically my brain as an organ has experienced so much trauma, be it mental, physical or emotional, that it can't cope as an organ. So it's not like a mental health thing, it's more of the way it's described to me is, it's like if your brain is a computer, the hardware is okay, but the software is just completely fritzed. It's knackered. And it'll come out in tremors. It comes out in various symptoms, and that can vary day to day, hour to hour. And I'm incapable of expressing emotion. I don't deal with pain properly. I compartmentalise pain. It's a good illustration of my upbringing, and also, what's led to this. When I was 13, I had a ring stick fracture in my left wrist, so the skin wasn't quite, the bone wasn't through the skin, but it was pushing the skin out. 13 years old, serious fracture. They had to go general anaesthetic, re-break, and put it back together. And my mum took me to the hospital. It was x-rayed, they were manipulating the arm around and everything. They said I went white, thought I was going to pass out with the pain, but at no point did I shed a tear. Because I've grown up, if you cry, you're going to get beat. And by 13, a serious break in my arm was not enough to make me cry. And that emotional hardness just got worse and worse and worse.
Do you think that developed from a young age then,
Yeah.
in terms of your neurology?
Yeah. So that came from childhood, and it just conditioned me to be less and less and less sensitised to things. And last June, I lost my dad to cancer. He'd been fighting it for 10 years. So he and I discussed it quite openly, as I'm talking to you now, about his death and what he wanted afterwards, this kind of thing. And when I got the call from the hospital to say, you know, you can come and see your dad whenever you want, he's going to have refused treatment. He was clinging on, and you could see he was just clinging on. So I literally cradled his head in my hand, put my arm around him, and just said, look, you know, you've done enough now. You can stop fighting. It's time to go and meet your mum. She died 11 years ago.
Do you miss him? Do you miss him?
Dad? I miss both my parents, which is really weird because of the abuse and everything. But when you're an only child, and they're the only people that have been stable in your life, now they're gone. I've got no other blood relatives apart from my daughter. So it's a different kind of loneliness now. You know, and things will happen, I think, oh, I can't wait to tell my dad apart. Hang on, no, I can't. Or, oh, you know. And, you know, so, yeah. But, as I say, cradled my dad, talked to him. He passed away in my arms. I look up, my daughter, my partner, sobbing my heart out. And I'm just like, smack you two. I'm trying on it. I went and told the nurses. And organised a funeral, that kind of thing.
Would you say this is related to obviously diagnosis with FND?
Yeah, it's where the
But you still have, as I say, I can still see a strong heart that you have.
Yeah.
So can you still sort of feel care and emotion for other people within your circle?
Feel empathy.
Empathy.
Very empathic. I can feel empathy, and I can look at situations and think that's not right. Or that must be awful. But it's thinking emotion rather than feeling it. And there's a big difference between those two things. And yeah, the FND is literally my brain just saying that I've had enough of this now. You know, I've been to counselling, and you just laughed because the counselling in this country is just absolutely shit.
Say it as it is.
It is fucking shocking. I'm sat down. The first one was just ordinary counselling, you know, and I'm sat with this woman, and I'm talking in a very emotionless way about the traumas that I've been through, and just as I'm talking to you now. And she started crying. Oh, hold on, you're the counsellor, you know. You shouldn't be doing it. This is wrong now. We've swapped roles. So I got sent off to CBT, who had more or less the same problem.
Yeah.
Because I was originally told to go and see a counsellor because I was emotionally dead. Who said there's certain levels, and you start off at the bottom with counselling and go to CBT, and there's other level, but they shot me. I went straight to a psychiatrist who listened to what I'd got to say and went, not surprised. And that's the first sensible thing I'd heard out of any of them. You know, look, you've had this traumatic life, you've done all these things, and it's no surprise that your emotions get cold. And it just.
Would you think it's right to say? I mean, there are. I mean, you know, I've counselling throughout my life, even as a young child, through to obviously leave the military and then seeing a psychiatrist as well and things. Now, there has been some, I would say, there's far from very few good counsellors. Would you say that talking to strangers can often be just as important, if not sometimes better, because they can relate perhaps more in some respect?
As long as that stranger has an idea of what you're talking about. I don't know what was there now. I've not been on the community council 15 years ago, so I might have changed a bit there. But either it was very much a softy approach. How did that make you feel?
Yeah, no, I remember my first times and stuff. It was just, right, tick that box, this is your sleeping pattern, what times, these hours, etc. And a load of bullshit, doesn't do anything for you.
It felt like absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the person I'm speaking to has got absolutely no clue what I've been through. There's no possible way they can relate to it, so they can't give advice on it. You know, and that's a really important thing. It doesn't matter if you're talking to a friend, a member of your family, a complete stranger, whether it's an official counsellor, just someone that there's a social group of you that everyone goes to. It's got to be someone that can understand where you're coming from, because that lack of understanding turns it from being a helpful thing to just a complete waste of time, and makes you more resentful of it. And the FMD thing, because obviously I have a lot of neuro pain. I've also got spinal problems as well, which doesn't help as much, but the neuro pain of things, I was sent to a pain management specialist who said your body's become oversensitive, your nerves have become oversensitive. Try stroking your neck with a feather to start. My hands tattooed and literally I've smashed every single knuckle, every single bone, all my fingers through fighting. I've broken most of my ribs. I've had multiple fractures all over the place. I actually broke my leg when I was little. I broke the top of my shin. But my mum, being of that generation, no, you just want to get off PE. And it actually splintered a bit because I was still growing. The splinter grew. So I actually had a piece of bone going into the back of my kneecap, which actually ripped away all the cartilage. I was still doing cross-country runs, until one day I literally just collapsed and the knee went boom.
Split apart.
Martial arts background teaches you to cope with pain. And so they send me to a pain clinic. He says, stroke your leg with a feather.
Fucking hell. Surprised you didn't launch him out the window. Surprised you didn't launch him out the window. Have a taste of this.
Yeah, I just sat there and well, do you think group therapy might help? Not really, you don't play well with others. I thought, well, if I'm going to sit around with a bunch of people who, doing a feather duster on each other, that's just something out of the fucking piss take.
Yeah.
I've still got, these two fingers are still broken. I've destroyed the cartilage in those two knuckles. So to get into work, I just have to pull a little part of the bottom. That's pain management.
So tell me about, now you obviously got tattoos everywhere and they're pretty cool. Now tell me about, obviously you're a tattoo artist as well, right?
No, I was born.
Right, so you're body pierce.
I owned a tattoo studio.
Oh wow.
I owned two, and I pierced lots of them.
Now, you just talked briefly about it. You talked to me about, in terms of, there's a lot of the inside things with tattoos. There's a lot of people who get tattoos to numb maybe emotional pain, that what they're going through. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I can tell you honestly.
Okay.
Because through various reasons, I mean, the last proper job I did was in the RSPCA. It was like tattoos and everything. So I got my first tattoo when I was 35. But I used to look in the mirror and I didn't like the person I saw. The reflection was not who I was inside. And so I got a tattoo up here that was nice and discreet. And then just started filling my body. And none of my tattoos are particularly pretty. They're not Zeus, Apollo, the pirate ships or anything. I'm my own living obituary. Everything on me is there for a reason. It's there to remind me of something. Even the crappy tribal up the arm has got like little codes and stuff in it that I know are there, but no one else would. And a lot of people use piercing and tattooing as a self-harm by proxy.
Wow.
It's permanent. And piercing, you just take it out and have it re-pierced, take it out and have it re-pierced.
So with that, you were on about, in terms of the martial arts thing, where you were saying about thinking before you do something earlier in this conversation. Would that apply to your advice now with people who maybe think about getting a tattoo just to numb their temporary pain?
Yeah. When people used to come into the studio, I know I did a studio for 10 years, and they were a little bit indecisive. I'd say, go home, print it out on A4, and put it in your bedroom or your bathroom. And you're going to see that every day. And if you can see it every day for a month, for however long, and you still like it, get it tattooed. But the day you walk in there and you think, actually that looks a bit shit, take it off, that ain't your tattoo. If you've got a decent artist, a decent studio owner, they will talk to you, or they should talk to you, find out the reasoning behind it, explore things that could mean a lot to you and still look nice. The big cross with the rose and the lilies was a memorial for my mum. She wasn't particularly religious, but roses and lilies were her thing. And I didn't just want mum with the date of birth, date of death. It looked shit. And eventually it would bleed out anyway, and ended up with war. So I got something to symbolise it. And a lot of the people that came into the studio, I'd work with the symbology of, I want a memorial from Dad. Well, what was your dad's hobby to motorbikes? We'll get motorbike tattooed on you then. Don't just have Dad on you. It's going to look stupid. And it's going to ruin the ability to create a sleeve out of it or extend it. Excuse me. And so think about your tattoos carefully. And if you walk into a studio and they go, what do you want? Right, okay, then fair enough. Walk away from it. Because unless you have the design and you insist upon that design, they should be exploring why you want the tattoo, why you want the piercing. And I mean, I used to do guest spots all over the country. I trained other piercers, and I could tell when people wanted a pretty piercing, and when people just wanted that bit of pain to. They didn't want to self-harm. They didn't want the self-harm scars, so they'd have a piercing or a tattoo instead. And that's something important to recognise in people.
Sure.
And when I was finding out tattoos when I came out of the RSPCA, I just went wild with them and enjoyed it. Had a few mates that could draw and tattoo and whatnot. So, and at the time in this town there was no piercer, so it made obvious sense. I was good with needles. I'd be a body piercer.
Cool. I'm going to ask you quite a sensitive question. Have you ever been suicidal?
Yeah.
Are you suicidal now?
Not so much.
Can you open up to me about situations where you've had suicidal thoughts or yeah?
This might, to a lot of people, sound stupid, but for various reasons, I had to give up the tattoo studio in August of 21, which is a bit of a private bit, it plays me. But I lost my dog at the same time, same month, and it was the loss of the dog that hit me, because I've grown up having pets. I've had dogs since I was 12. So, that's 47 years, 37 years, sorry, of having a pet to come home to.
Sure.
And it got to a point where I didn't want to be in this house. It's a nice house, it's a big house, but I didn't want to be here. And then it started getting worse, and because I had to take a cocktail of painkillers and sedative tranquilizer type stuff every night so I'm able to sleep. For over a year, every night I was dishing the tablets out. I said, I didn't take this for long. And sometimes, I might mix tablets I know shouldn't be mixed. Or I might just have too much of one. Leaving it to chance, it wasn't a deliberate suicide attempt, but I had no...
But you were consciously taking more medication than you should.
Yeah, or mixing medications, so I shouldn't do. Because I just didn't want to be alive anymore. And the only thing that stopped me completely overdosing was that I had sole responsibility for my daughter. And that was it.
Something clicked. Something clicked.
Yeah, the girlfriend, she could get on with her life. The daughter couldn't. So, even though I was still kind of overdosing a little bit here and there, and every single night, without fail, I would look at the tablets and think I could end the pain. I resisted it and just kept on fighting, kept on resisting it. And I suppose, you know, when you look back over things, I've always been a fighter. But I've always fought other people. And for that year and however many months...
You were fighting yourself?
Yeah, exactly. I was fighting myself. I wasn't fighting the inner demons that were maybe to go out and thump someone or anything else. I was fighting that urge to just not be here anymore. And over a dog, that might sound really stupid or like John Wick.
It's not stupid at all.
But that dog was my last rescue case. And he had been badly abused, and he was only 18 months on the bottom. And that big old Malamute. And you know, he'd been passed around for software drugs. He'd never been given dog food, so when I tried to feed him dog food, he didn't recognise it. He lived on Chinese and pizzas and whatever I was eating, he would have some. And he was really vicious. You know, luckily the laws were different, but he bit 3 people. And when someone came around the house, he had to go outside. He couldn't even be trusted in a cage because people would get near it. So he had to go outside. He was a killer. But he was with me 11 and a half years. And if you look at the way his early life was, from abuse and not having a proper home, it resonated with me. And then seeing him develop from being psychotic to everybody to being protective of his family, again, that was me, you know. So not only, you know, is he a great pet, but he's a reflection of what I've been through. And when I lost him, it was like I lost part of myself as well.
Yeah, correct, okay. I want to ask you a question. Do you still have the urge of violence now?
Yeah.
How do you control it?
I think about things. If I was attacked in the street, I wouldn't hold back.
But how do you sort of compose yourself now as to where you were? Would you say you've learned to like yourself? Now we talked about suicide and what you've been through. Have you learned to sort of like a little bit of Paul? And acceptance you mentioned earlier in this video. Or would you say it's just accepting who Paul is?
Who I am. I don't particularly like the person I've become, but I'm trying to become a better person. Someone that I can like. But yeah, I've accepted who I am. It's been said to me many times, there's something in my eyes where I get angry, you know, when it comes to the point of almost crying. There's something that you can spot. You can spot the guys that can fight, that know what they're doing, that aren't afraid. And you know, it's that case, and you're probably very similar yourself. You know what I'm talking about when you say that one of us is going to walk away. You know, to stop me, you're going to have to kill me. because I'm relentless. I will not stop. I don't care if you put me in hospital, I'll come back out, I'm going to come find you again. You know, and it's something. It's not necessarily your build or your skills or anything else. It's just something that inside you projects itself. And you know, this isn't someone who's just going to smack me one and walk away. This is another level. This is extreme. You know, and I can see in your eyes right now that you know exactly what I'm talking about.
And I want to ask you, what's your best advice, Paul? Now you're in a lot better place, and I want to thank you so much for sharing just snippets of your story. These are just snippets. What's your best advice for anyone who is being through a similar situation like yourself? What would you like to share with people who are viewing this video? It can be quite a hard question, that.
Look after the people that are looking after you. If you have a friendship group, social club, a class of, for instance, 10 people, and one of you's the one that everyone goes to talk to because you're a really good listener or you're really good at giving advice, don't forget that person, the strong one, you know, the rock, however you want to phrase it, but there's one in every group. They've got their own issues, but they've got everybody else's as well on their shoulders, and they're trying to give advice, they're trying to help in whatever way they can their friends. They're putting everyone else's issues before their own. And it's not enough to say, "Are you alright, mate?" Or they go, yeah, I'm fine. And there was a thing a while back, maybe a few years ago, I don't know, time passes differently. But it was don't just say, "Are you okay?" Say it again. Well, you're going to get the same fucking answer, aren't you? Are you okay? Yeah. You sure you're okay? Yeah, why won't I be? You know, that starts to become a challenge. Don't ask them if they're okay. Ask them what it's like to be the one that everyone goes to. Ask them how they feel about it. Ask them if there's anything you can do to help them. Take an interest in how they deal with everyone else's problems. Because that person that everyone goes to might not have anyone else to go to themselves. And throughout my life, I've always been that rock. I've always been that one strong person. But eventually it's caught up with me. And I have no one to turn to. But I've learned to deal with it and accept it and understand it. But for the people growing up in their late teens, early 20s, whatever, in any age in fact, if there is somebody within your circle that looks after everyone else, make sure you are looking after them. Even if it's just keeping an eye on them, but let them know that you recognise the fact that life is going to be tough for them and that you appreciate what they do. Not just, "Oh, cheers mate, I owe you one," but genuinely find time to sit down and talk to them the way they do you. And that's the best advice I could give anybody, because not only are you helping them, but you're kind of helping yourself as well. If the person you're going to is the rock crumbles, you've got no one to go to now. You've then got to find another rock. So, it's kind of a two-way, make it a two-way street instead of a one-way street.
Really good advice.
You know, that would be the best piece of advice I could give anybody, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Paul, look, it's time's thin on the ground, and we've managed to get snippets of your journey, and we'll definitely be back for more. And you've given some great wisdom and advice, and thank you for personally sharing your story with myself and other people who will watch this. And I'm certain that if it doesn't help 2 people, it'll help that one person, and know that you've made a change for that. So massive respect, and when the app comes out in Suicide, make sure you download it. Alright, thanks pal.
You know, as I'm driving back now, there's that sort of question that lies in my head that if Paul didn't go through what he's been through, would it be the man that he is today? You know, for someone like Paul who has the tenacity and strength that I've just witnessed, it takes a lot of courage and bottle to open up just about snippets about his life. I think he's an incredible human, a role model to many boys out there and men out there who can relate to a violent past. But at the same time, I can still see within Paul's eyes the hurt that he's been through. Does he remain violent still? I'll let you question that. But what he has done today is he's shown that it's okay to talk about what you've been through. And I think his message is quite profound in that he's just wanting to show others that it's okay to come from a violent past and a disturbed upbringing, because Paul has a heart, and I think that separates him from many